11th edition is here. Everybody's opening their shiny new Armageddon boxes, getting down in the depths of the new points and rules updates, working out how the game works with the new force dispositions, refining their army lists with the new detachment system, and excitedly slapping together their fancy new push-up models, which will go directly onto their shelf to remain unpainted for all eternity, gathering dust alongside Leviathan and Indomitus. But before we get stuck into all that new hotness, I've got some unfinished business with 10th edition, the Birmingham Open at the UK Game Expo, my final 10th edition tournament, and the definitive answer to the big question. When it comes to 10th edition 40k, is Paul truly bad at stuff? The Birmingham Open was an 8-game event, and I'm going to be real with you here. 8 games is just too many for me. That's not to say I didn't have a good time. I did. It was actually really cool. I played 8 great games against 8 wonderful opponents. I met a ton of cool people, got some cool swag, which I don't normally get at these events, UKTC, what's up with that? But playing that much 40k in a single weekend just completely destroyed me. Even now, like a month later, I still don't think I fully recovered. In any case, like all of my tournament reports, I'll go through my list changes and all the games, but this won't be quite as in-depth as normal. Fortunately, there weren't really any games that were anything like my first game at the last Winchester event. Most of these were decided around particular moments in the game that I'll highlight. And we're still joined by Lord Defiler Toby Bennett, helping me out and telling me I'm a goddamn moron in the nicest way possible.
Right.
Look, this was my first Games Workshop event, so this was my first proper time playing on GW layouts with their recommended missions. So I don't have these maps in my template document thing, and because 11th edition completely changes everything anyway, I'm not going to waste my time creating a bunch of different templates and maps for something that is completely irrelevant. At least that also means I don't really have to talk about whether I like the terrain or not compared to something like UKTC, because it doesn't bloody matter anymore. Also, did I mention this was 8 games? If I went into the play-by-play for every turn of every single game, we'd be here until 12th edition. Maybe you're sitting there, you just think I'm making excuses to cop out because I can't be arsed. And yes, it absolutely is a cop-out, but this is my fucking video, and I'm the twat who has to spend hours editing this goddamn mess, so you better fucking pay attention, you piece of shit. So, I don't know why I'm so aggressive. After the Winchester GC, Toby suggested that I make 3 new lists. One with minor changes, one with moderate changes, and one with many changes. And honestly, this exercise was really useful because it helped highlight exactly what makes my list work. After Winchester, I immediately had some ideas what small changes I'd like to make, but trying to make bigger changes fundamentally altered the entire function of the list, and so it didn't really feel right.
So it's definitely been worthwhile doing the exercise as well, because I think we've identified when we made big changes, it was just like, this is kind of getting away from a strategy that we know is successful for no real benefit apart from maybe like, here's a bit of extra damage, here's a bit of extra annoyingness.
Yeah, I feel like both of the lists, which are more than just a minor change, are entirely different armies that would need an entirely different game plan. Like 2 lots of 12 Centurions would work very well if you built the rest of the list around it. If you built a heavier list, which again is a completely different archetype, it just feels like a completely different army.
So this is the list I ended up with, and it's extremely similar to my Winchester one. I removed 5 Vanguard Veterans and added 5 Jump Pack Intercessors, which will henceforth be known as JPIs because that's just way easier to say. I found the 10 Vanguard Veterans were not doing enough, and trying to get all 10 Inferno Pistols into range was tricky at the best of times. With a smaller, more focused squad, I can get another squad of the unit that helps me win the game by being fast and flipping objectives, while still maintaining the same amount of killing power from the Vanguard Vets. Those Vanguard Vets, being AP 1, damage 1, aren't great in melee, but Shrike is fantastic. So I basically treated this as a unit of 5 Inferno Pistols and Shrike. With these spare points, I can upgrade a unit of Scouts into a unit of Incursors. Their +1 to hit buff and Meltamine are both great, and it's another unit that I can potentially use to trigger the Invicta Warsuit Combat Support ability.
I like the small change.
Oh, before you ask, and you're probably going to point this out, there are 5 green JPIs. Those are the ones I borrowed from Toby because I don't own 15 JPIs, and if I wanted to use 5 of my Vanguard Vets as JPIs, it would be a complete nightmare for me and my opponent to remember which ones are which. I mean, I could probably remember which ones are which, but turns out no one has encyclopedic knowledge of F-Zero X like I do, because anyone who's not a millennial doesn't know F-Zero X, and also I'm a massive fucking nerd. I also borrowed Toby's Deceptors because they have those 3D printed smoke plumes, which means I don't have to worry about snapping my 2 remaining flight stands on my Deceptors. The alternative would be using a squad that contains 2 models and 4 bases with an extremely stupid tactical plastic stick jutting out. This style of Screaming Raven list looks like it will be quite decent in 11th, which is really cool and hopefully means I don't have to learn a completely new play style. Okay, yes, I mean, I still need to know how to play this style because I suck at this play style and I still make a ton of mistakes that end up costing me the game. For example, game 1 was against Caden, who was a super nice guy. This was Caden's first big event. And I gotta say, doing a 3-day event as your first one is a trial by fire, to be sure. There were a few people that I spoke to that says this was their first, and fair play to you. At least now 2-day events will feel like a walk in the park. Speaking of a walk in the park, Caden is bringing 5 big, stompy Imperial Knights of different varieties in the Valourstrike Lance detachment. Canis Rex, a Lancer, Castellan... Whoa, okay. Clearly I still haven't recovered. What the fuck was that? Let me try that again. A Canis Rex, a Lancer, a Crusader, and an Errant. We're playing Hidden Supplies on the Crucible of Battle. Nice and easy recap for this game. I messed up. As I've said before, when I say I screwed up or lost the game because of a mistake, that isn't me taking away anything from my opponent or saying that my opponent didn't win based on their own ability or that they only won because I made the mistake and I would have won otherwise. But I did massively shit the bed on this one, and really goddamn early too. I overextended because I was greedy. The main play here was my Blade Guard being deployed forward. Yes, that's an easy charge target for a knight, but with rerolls of 1 to save, I can keep most of them around if he wants to attack them with a knight. And as I fight first, I can do a little bit of damage back before the Invictors come around and punch their lights out with that Strength 14 fist. Kanan rolled to go first and did standard knight things, placing Canis Rex, the Lancer, and the... I think Errant, I'm not 100% sure, I can't quite work out the guns, but I'm pretty sure it's the Errant, on all the No Man's Land objectives, with the Errant charging my Blade Guard to get onto those two. Now, me, being big-brained, put Oath of the Moment on the Errant. The hope here was that I could get enough into it to take it out in melee. But in my infinite wisdom, I decided to move out the Centurions as insurance. And after doing my movement phase and realizing that I really didn't need that insurance, I tried to fire the ore that I could actually move through the ruin at Canis Rex, which bounced. On Kane's next turn, he could just use Castellan and Canis Rex to completely annihilate the Centurions while the Lancer tore through the rest of my army without resistance. I tried to salvage the game with my Deceptors coming down to destroy Canis Rex, but thanks to a rerolled 4-up save, Canis Rex survived on 2 wounds remaining. Had Canis Rex died, it would have been a 15-point primary swing. But, alas, it was not meant to be. And I lost by way more than 50 points anyway, so it doesn't really matter. A very quick 54-95 defeat. Not a great start to the tournament. All I needed to do was take a moment to think more than 1 turn ahead, but instead I was bitten by my old habits yet again. And something tells me that Toby is going to give me a furious bonkening.
Yeah, it very much is. That is a huge bonk from the bonk stick. Look, there's a nice easy fix to that, and that is spending a bit more time in your movement phase with some pre-measuring. Because if you get the dice out and agree with your opponent, right, how many Centurions do I get in line of sight, and you go, I'm only getting 4. If you've not moved them at that point and you're just discussing it, you probably then don't make that move, and it gives you that little bit of extra headspace to make that choice. You don't have to go for it at that point, and I think that's the really critical thing. Having that discussion with your opponent is a really good way to kind of control the tempo of the game as well, because you're kind of feeding your opponent, like, if you do this is the only way that you're going to be able to do this. So it's getting them back into that reactive mindset at the same time, because then they're thinking, oh, okay, so what if I do that? And it's almost kind of that subliminal messaging can also just give you that little edge where suddenly they start playing your game plan, and then you don't need to throw away those Centurions. You just get to nuke them, and they get very sad very fast.
For the first, I would say, 15 minutes of that game, I was on top form, and the other 45 minutes I was not. Then I got 2 hours to try and look around the hall, realised that there is far too much at UK Game Expo to look around for any amount of time. I went into there with I was carrying like my army and everything. In my Mac is 2.0 for Dell.stronghold.com. There you go, that'll be a good transition for the video, because I haven't written a good segue in yet. The only thing hotter than the current heatwave in the UK is the hot deals on the Magcase 2.0 from Table.stronghold.com. I only wish that the figurative coolness of the Magcase 2.0 was able to cool me down physically, but alas, the strong MDF, adjustable trays, and the power of magnets can only display your minis of any size safely and securely, and cannot act as a cooling system, unless you filled it with, like, ice or something, but you really should not use that, and you should use it to display and transport your minis easier than ever before. Right now, there's 35% off because of some sort of celebration across the pond, and you can get free shipping to all of these locations. It's so hot right now, Jesus Christ. Please just go to tab.stronghold.com and get yourself a Magcase 2.0 so the Magnet Wizard gives me more money and I can buy an air conditioning unit or something. This is not just an ad, but it's also a cry for help. Please, for the love of God, end this torment. I'm melting to death. Game 2 was against Dharma, who is a super nice guy. Dharma was playing Seer, Council, Aeldari, and Aeldari is one of those armies that I always fear because I know they can kill me extremely quickly. And yet, somehow across my 10th edition adventures, I'm actually 4 for 4 against them. That score does include this game, but I doubt anyone actually knows off the top of their head what my current score is, so you won't be able to work out if I won or lost this game unless I told you. So I'll tell you, I lost. This was Purge the Foe, which is usually pretty good for me against Aeldari, and to be honest, I can't remember all the specifics of this game. I think it was relatively okay in terms of me not being completely annihilated, but I don't think I played particularly great either. My big mistake was playing overly defensive with my Blade Guard. My Blade Guard can absolutely murder Aeldari, but I'm always hesitant because I don't want to get jumped by something that could easily kill them. Therefore, they mostly stayed in my deployment zone waiting for a chance to countercharge, and that chance never really came. Until like round 4, when Lycus yeeted
headed onto my home objective. Despite playing 8 games against Aeldari, I could not tell you how or why I won or lost those games, because all of them felt so different, and outside of a few key units that I can recognize, I don't really know how they function or how I should approach them. Maybe that's me being reactive again and Toby needs to get the bonk stick out, but I feel like if I play to my game plan, Aeldari just have numerous ways to punish me for doing something because they're so deadly. Or at least I feel like they're deadly, maybe they aren't that bad. I'm probably getting into my own head about it, but either way, it was a 68 to 91 defeat, which isn't that bad, to be honest. I never really got hold of the primary at any point, and even kill more wasn't happening just because of how well Dharma was playing around it.
It's quite an easy sort of clock, because basically you played the Aeldari game, which is the trade game, so it fell too quickly into reactive. So I don't know where the bonk stick is, but it's
going to be around your head.
It comes down to what are acceptable losses is the really critical thing, and those Blade Guard in that matchup are 100% the most acceptable loss, because they will draw out so much stuff, because they are a Marine that has a 4-up invuln, so they are just a pain in the back. So especially once those swooping hawks are gone and he can't do his mortal wound trick there, he's going to end up overexposing far too much at far too high a cost, and then you just have a turn where Centurions kill 2 units and that'll do it.
Yes, that one was that game, and it was still a fun game, and it felt a lot better than the first one, where I was like, okay, the mistake I made here was I fucked up. This one was just like, okay, I just need to learn better how my army works and how to utilize, like, what the power is of my army against certain other armies and how to exploit that. Because that's the other thing. It's like, I go, oh, JPIs, oh, they're never that good, but then I have to realize if I put 5 JPIs into some Aeldari, they will die.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes. We're going back to the yes.
Well, yes, but actually no.
Yeah. You're saying, like, how do they play into those certain other armies? Absolutely. But you didn't execute your own strategy. You played their game. You went, okay, I'm going to skirmish a little bit with you, and then because I'm scared of your damage output, I'm going to sit back a little bit too much. And yes, as you say, but your foundations were on that. That was never going to work, unfortunately, because it's their game plan that they built their list for. If you'd gone, I am just going to do exactly as discussed, fling these units up, and then we're going to see what they have to bring out, and they're forced to bring it out because otherwise they'll get a hold more. Bang. They're dead. Again, it's that reactivity versus proactivity. And that's so critical against people like Aeldari, because the second they start reacting to you, their units fall over. Like they're just dead in seconds. It's crazy how quickly these things just fall apart for them as soon as they react, because as good as they are as being all over the place and doing mortals and things like that, you can ask too many questions of them of like, where are you going to turn off Overwatch? How are you going to deal with this unit in this position if that's going to take one of your big blobs out? Like those questions, suddenly they collapse.
Game 3 was against Adam, who was a super nice guy. Do you think at this point I should probably just record myself saying who was a super nice guy, so I'd have to say it over and over again? I guess probably not, because automating an acknowledgement of people being nice is not very cool. And I do want to actually acknowledge that these people are, in fact, super nice. Especially someone like Adam. Adam was awesome. I had a really fun game, and it was a delight to play against him, especially because of his list. His list was amazing, right up my street. Grey Knights with Quintuple Nemesis Dread Knight. 5 of the finest Grey Knight walkers that you are wrong for thinking aren't the coolest thing ever, running alongside a big squad of Purifiers led by Castle and Crow, as well as some other smaller units for actions and teleporting goodness. We're playing Take and Hold on the Search and Destroy deployment, and this is the game where the Invictor Tactical Warsuits absolutely stole the show. I had a plan in my head of how I was going to do things. Deploy the Blade Guard on this objective, hiding in the ruin, and use JPIs to Alto C on this objective and pressure. I didn't really need to worry about the middle, as that could be covered by either Centurions or JPIs that can harass. Or what I actually did, sent a double Invictor-shaped road rocket board so no one could get the middle. I got the first turn, and straight away I scout, move, and charge both Invictors into a Grandmaster Dread Knight. JPIs also got rid of the Custodes immediately to get overwhelming force and remove the Vect aura from ever being a thing I have to deal with, and now that it's nerfed in 11th, probably have to deal with again. Thank Christ, because it's so bloody annoying. The JPIs are going to die, but more pressingly, I've positioned my Invictors to completely block this pathway into the center from the other Dread Knights in Adam's deployment zone. Adam then has to spend the next 2 turns with this Dread Knight getting rid of both Invictors. That delay allowed me to get 15 points on my first turn of primary. In his first turn, Adam brings down the big Purifier squad to deal a ton of damage to the Blade Guard, but not enough to take them off the objective. Unfortunately for Adam, I can do the same uppy downy trick. Except when I do it, it's with 6 Centurions. Little quid pro quo that absolutely annihilates the entire squad and leaves Crow injured. More like quid pro quo, am I right? No. With enough damage dealt to the big threats, I was able to put the pressure on, moving my Centurions around to delete Dread Knights, dropping Deceptors to erase any remaining Grey Knights, and even towards the end of the game, with Adam trying to get end of game primary in round 5, I was able to turn off his home sticky objective, leaving him with just 2. He had a chance to get a third, with Crow coming in and having to try a 9-inch charge for the center, but didn't quite make it, which is a shame, shame, because that would have been a great bit of retribution. A bit of quid pro quo. A 94-74 victory for the Scream Ravens, rounding out to day 1 with a 1-2 record, which is basically exactly average for me.
You played it exactly as how we wrote the list. You played it proactively, you were in the right positions, and your opponent started reacting to you. That is the critical difference between that win and both of those other games before. You executed your plan. There is no better way to describe that. You won from turn 1.
I feel like playing this tournament has really made me see that I win or lose a game from turn 1. There are a couple where it wasn't that, but like most of the time, it's like if I even mentally get the momentum, the win path just looks so much clearer. All I did at that first turn was move a couple of things around to stage and got the Invictus into that Dread Knight and killed it. And I just looked at the map and just went, I think I win this game 100%, because like the entire game plan from there, it's like he's gonna send one of them around there, but I can just kill that. They send the other things around here. I've got enough stuff to just out OC him. Can't get into the middle because I've blocked them off until later on, at which point I can just Centurion them with whatever's got left. Everything just worked perfectly. Unlike the Aeldari game where turn 1 I did a couple of little things, but I didn't really have a solid, it was kind of like vague about what I was doing, and then it just fell apart. Or against the Knights where I went, oh, I've got this solid game plan, I can see whatever happens. Oh, I've fallen down the stairs and accidentally dropped my Centurions on the floor. Oh no. This one was definitely more of just like a, yes, this is what I do, I've done it.
Yeah, a lot of the time what we call that is going rat brain, and it's basically where you start feeling a bit tired and you kind of go a little bit on autopilot, but you've had the reps and you've had the practice now that autopilot is trained to just execute your game plan, and that's the kind of the space that you need to be in. I think this will be something that will be quite tough for you at times, but it is that moment of letting go and going, okay, this was always the plan, doesn't matter what's in front of me, I'm sticking to this plan.
I still have 5 more games to try and get 3 wins, but to put this into perspective, this tournament is essentially doing a 1-day RTT immediately followed by a 5-round GT. There was also some sort of bracketing system where after the 4th game, everyone is divided into brackets, so if you do well, you get into the top bracket, which is like the top 16, and you actually then only play against others in the top 16s. So it basically ensures that the person who wins is actually the best and didn't get lucky with an easy run of opponents. Did this pool system really matter? No, not really, because I was never going to get into the top bracket, especially when there were 19 Defilers in the top 16, which included Toby's list, the meta-chasing, crab-spreading bastard. Oh, did they get nerfed heavily? Oh no, what a shame. But what that does mean is the next game could decide if I'm going to be in the bottom bracket or the 3rd bracket, which is quite important for overall rankings, which I don't really care about, so I don't really know why I brought it up. I'm going to be honest, I just wanted to call Toby a bastard. Alright, let's just move on to day 2. Game 4 was against Ed, who was a super nice guy. Ed was playing Talons of the Emperor Custodes, and every time I look at his list, I keep thinking I've somehow copied it wrong, because there should be a big characters header right here, but instead it says battle line. It's not a mistake, I don't think, unless he wrote it wrong. Ed's characters are just all allied units. The Warlord Draxus, who is a mainstay in Custodes' list thanks to her incredible abilities, and the new sheriff in town, Inquisitor Croyle. Otherwise, this list is just a fuck ton of Custodian Guard, or as my script is trying to autocorrect it to, a function of Custodian Guard, which, to be honest, I think is quite funny as a collective noun. So yeah, it's a function of Custodian Guard. This army is basically trying to even the odds on custodizing your opponent. What does custodizing mean? Well, pretty much every Custodes unit has a 4-up invuln. A 4-up invuln is essentially a coin flip. So eventually you're going to flip enough coins to get a load of heads in a row, which shuts down your opponent's plans.
You got a 50-50 chance of winning.
This game started off quite well for me, and I even had to really force Ed's hand when I started burning the center objective with the Invictor. And Ed's shooting is not enough to take it down.
That's such a good play.
Instead, it forced him to charge his Alarus Custodians in a really weird way to try and get enough OC onto that point to stop it, which left them exposed to Centurions. Elsewhere on the board, I was doing decently harassing his expansion, really shutting down Croyle and distracting a decent chunk of his army away from my expansion. But from the mid-game onwards, that 4-up invuln kicked in, and the 2 squads of Custodian Guard assaulting my expansion just refused to die. 6 Centurions firing at 2 Custodian Guards killed 0. The only save he didn't make, I rolled low on the damage, and across the rest of the game, I only managed to kill a single 1. Those few Custodian Guards just tore through my JPIs, Blade Guard, and everything else. It was an absolute nightmare. I probably did some stuff wrong as well. No, scratch that. I definitely did something wrong. And Ed still played very well despite the circumstances of his poor turns early. But those 4-ups just halted all of my momentum, and sometimes that is just how it goes. A 58-88 defeat. Still a fun game, but man, those 4-ups, it's like the dice just hates me. As long as you don't think about the absolutely rancid rolls that Ed was getting previously, which caused that Invictus to stay alive, which allowed me to kill his Aeldari Custodians. But I can't complain about those rolls, and they don't help me make me feel better about myself, so I'm going to ignore them.
Learning the skill to bounce back from a bad turn is one of the hardest ones. Like when the momentum is with you but then shifts against because of dice, that is one of the hardest things to do. And I think it takes that planning. It's almost like disaster prepping, where you go, okay, well, if everything goes tits up this turn, what can I do to prevent that from just ending the game there and then? And it's things like having, you know, squad of scouts in front of those Alaris so they can't then go and charge the Dev Sense. How can you still set up that move block or you know, positionally cause trouble to your opponent? Whereas, like, yes, you know, they've definitely still got a lot more play, but you're not getting spanked just because you had bad dice return and then you get to try again. Yes, it will be with fewer assets, but at least you're still in the game. It's like, how do you recover from that big punch that knocked you out for 3 seconds, but then you got to get back up and keep going? And that skill it's very difficult to learn. It only comes with kind of experiencing it by accident sometimes as well, where you're like, oh, it's fucking lucky I put that on the objective because I didn't clear them out and now they're not scoring 15. Close. And it's those kinds of plays that it'll take time to get used to, but you know, it's just time, right?
Game 5 was against Sophie, who was a super nice gal, and Sophie was one of the few rare people cool enough to play Chaos Space Marines without any Defilers. Not only that, she was playing Deceptors, which is really unique as a choice, and she had 3 Mutilators, which are awesome. Deceptors' whole thing is they can give Infiltrate to Legionnaires and Cultists. Sophie took full advantage of this, meaning all of her battle line could infiltrate, as well as 2 squads of Red Corsair Raiders. So that's 8 units infiltrating, which is a lot of fun. This is an excellent plan, with only 2 minor drawbacks. 1, I won the roll-off to determine attacker and defender, and let defender and put 70 points of scouts here to block off a huge amount of potential infiltrate areas. And 2, I was able to deploy my Centurions right in this line of sight because it wasn't really threatened by anything. Sophie rolled for the first turn and got herself on all 3 objectives nice and easy. Removed these scouts for good measure and scored big on her turn 1 secondaries. On my first turn, I killed 20 cultists, a Vindicator, 5 Legionnaires, and took Sophie off every single objective except her home. And had she spent her actions doing secondaries, she had no terraforms, so I didn't even have to worry about flipping them. On turn 2, she brought around the Mauler Fiend and some Legionnaires to secure the center. She moved some Legionnaires to the Corsairs to deal with the Strike Bomb on her expansion, which she did succeed, and terraformed it. On my turn 2, I picked up the Mauler Fiend, 2 squad of Legionnaires, terraformed my expansion, put my Blade Guard on the center. I grabbed this game by the throat and did not let go. Sophie did make a couple of good plays. The Mutilators dropped down in my deployment zone and used from all sides for an easy charge into Centurions from Deep Strike. Unfortunately, the Centurions tanked most of the damage and then just fell back and shot them. But the one that we were both excited about was when she destroyed one of my Invictors and was able to finally use Detonator to cause it to auto-explode. Apparently this was the first time this tournament was able to do that, which is great. Whilst it didn't do that much damage because it was just an Invictor, it was still very funny. I'll be honest, Deceptors, I think, is just such a fun detachment. Is it that powerful? I don't know, but it's so great. It's such a unique one as well. Some really cool tricks in there.
There's an element that comes down to it where if your opponent is playing it, in this case, flawed into you strategy, and that is ultimately, that list was built to do that job, but ultimately into Raven Guard, that's never going to work. So you can, because your list plays their game plan better than them, it's one of those rare occurrences where if you play reactively, no, you can actually just nuke them. And like, that's fine. They come up 1 in 100 games, and you'll sometimes get it when you skill diff opponents as well.
Sophie just did not have enough left in her army to weather the Screaming Raven's onslaught, and for the first time in over a year, I managed to get a perfect 100 victory points, 100 to 72. A really fun game, and it was nice to see a lesser used attachment on the battlefield, especially when it's one that I would actually like to try out. Also, I will say that Sophie had mentioned her Predator Annihilator had been very poor so far in the tournament, and judging from her dice rolls for it, yeah, that thing's really unlucky. I don't think it did any damage at all. But she also proved that dice are sentient and rolled boxcars for a charge that she didn't really care about and was just rolling to see if it would work. But that is how dice work. They aren't random like people think. They know when you need to roll well, so they purposely screw you. But if you don't care about the roll, or the roll doesn't matter, they'll roll really well. Case in point, when Sophie and I talked about this phenomenon, I picked up 2 random dice and rolled them to prove my point. Dice are not random. Dice contain the essence of trickster gods and are laughing at you every time you fail a 3-inch charge. And they're probably also laughing at you about your other 3-inch thing you fail with. Game 6 was against Alex, who is a super nice guy. And in a weird coincidence, Alex is playing Rubricae Phalanx Thousand Suns, just like at the Winchester GT 2 weeks prior. If you watched my last video, you might remember Toby saying this about the Rubricae Phalanx matchup.
That is a terrible matchup for you as well. That should be one where he just nukes you.
And if you didn't watch my last video, Toby said this about my Rubricae Phalanx matchup.
That is a terrible matchup for you as well. That should be one where he just nukes you.
Unlike last time where I managed to squeeze out a victory, this game was very illustrative of how bad this matchup is. Centurions. I made one wrong move and the game was instantly over. It was already a struggle trying to get rid of the secondary robots on the middle objective, whilst I also tried to keep Alex's expansion covered. His metric ton of flavor Rubrics were marching towards me and I could not charge them because I'd just get overwatched immediately. And I was also trying to hide from the nasty Forge Fiends, and on this map there are 0 good places to drop my Centurions. I brought out those Centurions to try and deal with something close to them, but I just completely missed a massive hole where I should have put my Deceptors. Instead of putting them near my backline, hoping to fly in later for a counterpunch, I should have put them here. And by not filling that gap, Alex immediately took that opportunity by rapid ingressing the 10 Scarabcult Terminators right outside my front door that I could do literally nothing about. And that was game over. And I mean literally. He made that move and the rest of the game lasted 15 minutes. On his turn, he just moves the Scarabcults forward, annihilates my Centurions, and I have no more answers for them. And even if I did, he still has 30 Rubrics that I can't get near. If I try to go for the Rubrics, they flame me to death. All of my fast melee is damage 1, which gets reduced AP against Rubrics and Scarabcults. Scarabcults also reduce the wound roll by 1, so I'm never getting through them. I can't teleport my Centurions into any angles that will get them lit up by Forge Fiends. My Invictors are all damage 1 except the Fists, but good luck getting the Fists into melee with anything.
Where's my bonk stick?
Honestly, look at the scoreboard until that turn 3, things were going pretty okay. Primary was going to be an issue, but after making that mistake, I scored 9 victory points for the rest of the game. Okay, so I'm 2 wins and 4 losses now, and I have 1 more day. I need to win both of the games here to hit my 4-4 goal, and seeing as we're already 6 games deep, I have no idea if my brain can even function enough to play the game, but I guess I just need to hope my opponent is in the same boat. Game 7 was against Matthias, who was a super nice guy, despite being a guard player, and was out for revenge because yesterday I beat his wife. Matthias was playing an interesting armoured infantry list using some of the new vehicles like the Hippogriff AFV and the Centaur RSV. I have no idea what those acronyms mean, and before you comment and tell me, I also don't care. We're playing Lynchmen on the tipping point deployment. Something about my list is that I do very well if my Centurions can start to get around the board and delete key units and snowball the game using the Into Darkness strat for free with Aeth and Shan, but there is another way I can win with these Centurions. And that's if I don't have to reposition them at all and could just keep them in one spot for the same result. Matthias and Sophie seem to have gone to the same school of disrespecting Centurions, as Matthias started his Rogal Dawn right in the open where I could walk my Centurions out to shoot it, taking it down to 4 wounds. The Strike Bomb also tried to charge his Tech Priest, but failed a 7-inch rerollable charge, so now it's just kind of sitting out in the open. Whoops. The big story of this game can be told with the primary score. This was Lynchpin. I'll give you the primary scores because they were very funny. I scored 8-8-8-8.
Right.
He scored 3-3-3-6.
Oh.
How do you score 6, you ask? Well, when Shan and the Blade Guard get to his home objective in turn 4, he can hold 2 in the middle, sure, but they're only worth 3 points each. I was able to harass his expansion all game so he would never score it, and anything he tried to send to my expansion, I could destroy it with Invictors, Blade Guard, and Shan. Shan and the Blade Guard also managed to get to his home objective and kill the Cadians hiding there, and near the end of the game, Shan also swooped into Lord Solar and ripped him off his horse.
Oh, Lord Solar, what did he ever do to you?
Lots. Like, gained a lot of command points is what he was doing.
Yeah, I should have balance.
My Centurions, Inceptors, and Incursors basically held the line against Chimeras and waves of Deathcore all game while I swooped across the top of the board. My Centurions picked up a lot of tanks, and for that, the distance I had to move all game was this far until turn 5, where I charged them into a Chimera. A 72-49 victory. A great game, though. Matthias was an absolute gentleman who I'd happily play again. 3 wins and 4 losses now with 1 final game to go. This will determine whether 10th edition was a success for me. This is a defining game at the end of a very long and tiresome road. Let's do it. Game 8 was against Matthias, who was a super nice... Hey, wait a minute. So, funny story. The pairings for this round glitched or something. I saw this pairing come up and I went to the table and waited with Matthias to see what he wanted to do. But unbeknownst to me, this happened to a lot of other people. I think it was like 6 other pairings. That was eventually sorted out by the TOs. A shame, really. Another win against Guard at the end of edition would have been great. But instead, I had a much more fitting final game. Now, some may say that Space Wolves are one of the weakest armies in the game and have actually been nerfed for 11th, but for some reason I still have a 0-3 record against them. So let's see if I can actually find a win a game against them. In Game 8, which was against Kieran, who is a super nice guy. Kieran is one of the 2 Kierans that make up the Kieran Show, and thus I'm contractually obligated as part of the YouTuber agreement to start beef with them to help further our channels through mutual drama farming. You'll be hearing from my Google Docie very soon. Kieran, no, not that one, the other one, was playing Space Wolves, which, as I say, I have a bit of a history against. I somehow managed to grab defeat from the jaws of victory every single time. So at least I knew what I was up against and what to watch out for. Kieran's list is actually fairly light on models, but he has 2 chunky Land Raiders carrying Blood Claws along with a Redemptor, 6 Head Takers, and the ever nasty Logan Grimdar with 10 Wolfie Terminators, which were starting in Deep Strike. We're playing Hidden Supplies on the Search and Destroy deployment. Unfortunately, I immediately screwed up. Listen, I was tired and I was just playing kind of sloppy and just kind of hanging out, but I wasn't really doing very good etiquette. I was going second, so I scattered my Invictus back behind this ruin, but I did it really badly and I didn't announce any of my intentions to Kieran. Like, I didn't say, I'm trying to make sure you can't see me from these sight lines. And honestly, I don't think I even really measured or checked the sight lines at all. And that was immediately punished because he could, in fact, see both of them. Weirdly though, the one that he oath momented only took like 4 wounds from a decked out las cannon land raider, but the one he didn't oath got immediately blasted by the Redemptor. I then lost the oath Invictor when I moved it up to charge into his blood claws on this objective, right in front of the hit re-rolling lethal hitting land raider Overwatch. Basically, I'm a big dumb idiot and lost both my Invictors turn 1. Fortunately, the strike bomb with 5 JPIs could clear out those blood claws, and my Centurions did heavy damage to the land raider Crusader. The strike bomb and JPIs were then jumped by 5 more blood claws getting out of the Crusader, which would have been 10 blood claws had I not killed 5 in Overwatch from the Centurion. So a little bit of quid pro why am I trying to make that joke again? Doesn't even make sense because it's fucking wolves. Quid pro quoof. Terrible. What am I doing? The Headtakers also got out of their Crusader and also attacked onto that objective, putting a whole lot of wolves onto that center. Somehow though, in game 8, my brain locked in and my third eye opened and I saw how everything was going to play out. At the end of Kieran's turn 2, I looked at the board state and turned to him and said, I think I pick up most of your army this turn. Centurions drop here and destroy the Land Raider. Inceptors drop onto the Oath Headtakers and blow them up. JPIs leap over and grenade and charge mortal the extremely damaged Crusader. And Blade Guard with more JPIs come across to finish the Blood Claws. My cards, however, did not get the memo as I drew behind enemy lines and engaged on all fronts. I also couldn't redraw it because I was planning to use my command point on grenades. It's fine, whatever. I'll go down at a few points here, but if I can get Kieran's entire army, leaving with just the Terminators and a Redemptor, I'll win later. And then I basically did what I said I was going to do. I killed all the Headtakers with the character, all of the Blood Claws, and the Land Raider. I didn't, however, kill the Crusader, which was a problem, because my rolls for mortals on the grenades and charging were pathetic, but at least I overwhelmed that objective with OC. But I didn't kill Ragnar or Arjak, the latter of which was on like 1 health. Whilst that was a lot of damage, it wasn't actually enough, because Ragnar and Arjak alone can easily clean up all of my resources that I used to do that, and Logan Grimnar's squad can easily get into my Blade Guard and take them out too. That has left me with very few resources for myself. The fully operational Centurions can now easily take out the Terminators though, but I don't have much to actually take any objectives back. And what's worse is my card draw, again, was Cleanse and Area Denial. Thanks, cards! By the end of the game, I had tabled Kieran, apart from his Wolf Scouts that stayed on his home, but I was just short of doing enough damage and wasn't able to stop Kieran's scoring. If only I had, let's say, 250 points of decent melee damage that could help clean up some of the stragglers and put a huge amount of OC on the points so that if anything was left, I still have 10 OC bricks of JPIs that could secure my objectives. Paul, you stupid fucking idiot! A 58-84 defeat. And with that, the Birmingham Open, and indeed 10th edition, is over. Did I manage to get good at stuff? No, I ended up coming like 80-something, I don't know. I was 3 wins and 5 losses. Honestly, that's probably a good thing, because I don't have to rebrand my whole channel. That would be an absolute ball ache. So instead, let's just move on and try again in 11th edition. At least this time, I'll have a full edition to try and get good instead of just a single year. Or realistically, like a month, because I was dicking around with Centurions for pretty much the rest of that time. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this, like, comment, subscribe, or become member or patron like all of these people. I'm going to go and perish in a pool of my own sweat right now, so if I do survive that, I'll see you next time.